Welcome to the Therapy Corner. On the Therapy Corner, we try to enlighten and educate about all things that are psychological in nature. That includes doing therapy and who we do therapy with and different therapeutic techniques. And also we touch on research in the field of psychology. Today we have a very special guest, Mary Jane Allenbaum, PhD. She's a licensed clinical psychologist. She's been on our show before talking about sex offenders. And we're going to continue that talk in a little different area today. I believe we're going to be talking about pornography specifically. There may be some very sexually explicit content here. So for those of you who have either suffered some trauma or may have difficulty viewing this, please be advised you may not want to watch this segment. Okay. Well, hello, Mary Jane. How are you?
Well, good morning, and thank you very much for having me on.
Always a pleasure with you, Mary Jane. Always a pleasure. Well, I'm going to start this off. Sorry, but certainly we need to probably have some definitions, perhaps, of pornography before we get any further. Because I know I teach human sexuality at Allen Hancock College, but we have to also there define, and of course the Supreme Court has had their definition, and that one famous justice who says, "I know it when I see it." It's like, come on. So is there a definition of pornography that holds water at all?
Well, yeah, and we put that on one of our slides. But pornography is printed or visual material containing explicit description of or display of sexual organs or activity intended to stimulate erotic rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. That's the official Oxford Dictionary. And then there's the casual ones. I know it when I see it. And what's the difference between art and pornography? A government grant, those sorts of
Yeah, I heard that one. I always thought that was a good one. Yeah, government grant. Okay. But anyway, no, and hopefully people will have noticed the slide that we just showed in regards to the definition of pornography, because I think it's important that we be clear about what we are talking about when we talk about pornography. Okay. It's big business out there, isn't it?
It's huge. Well, first of all, I think we need to say that we aren't going to make any moral judgments about this. A lot of people have very strong feelings about pornography, range from conservative views, religious prohibitions, political issues, feminist theory. So we're not even going to wander into that swamp. We're just.
Oh no, gosh, I'm glad you said that, because I read an article here recently, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, at some point. That was posted in Psychology Today, and you know the one I'm talking about, because we already talked about it, and it angered me, and I wrote to the editor about it because I was so angry, and I agree with you. I think what we need to do is be very clear that we are not here to judge. We're here to present material, and people need to make judgments for themselves.
Exactly. So, and I hope we talk about that article at some point. Don't let me forget.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the first thing right off the bat to think about in pornography, especially, we're probably going to focus on online pornography. It is a huge business, absolutely huge. 12% of the websites on the internet are pornographic.
Wow.
They pull more than $2 million a year. And I'm sure since COVID that usage has gone up. And I haven't seen any data yet, but I'm looking for it. 40 million Americans are regular visitors. This is the interesting, this is 77% are men, but 50% of the men who use pornography websites are married. I think that, that's something. I don't know what it says, but it says something. And we have a couple of cute slides to stick in here, just some visuals so you get a sense of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So given that it's just a huge business that says something about this is not something going on in back rooms or hidden away, it's pretty common, and it's in our society. It's probably not talked about a lot for various reasons, but I think I'm assuming a lot of our audience is therapists. I'm thinking that probably it's something you might need to put in the back of your backpack of things to explore at some point, especially in couples work or especially in people who are having difficulties, that pornography is often lurking back there, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, God, yes. In working with couples, it's come up many times.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about it in terms of addiction, because I had one client who got into a little trouble at his work, and they were filing charges against him saying that he was addicted to pornography. And so we'll talk about that later on in the show. But it's out there. It's sort of funny when we talk about not being judgmental and the number of people that are actually doing it. In my class, I point out that, pornography, the highest percentage of users in the United States are in the Bible Belt.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
The Bible Belt of the United States, right down there in the southern portion of the United States, the Bible Belt has the highest proportion of pornography, along with the highest teen pregnancy rate. But we won't go there.
I did not know that. Thank you. Yep. So bottom line, it's big business, and it's out there. It's big business. And keep in mind what that says about how they access customers in terms of big business. Think Amazon or Google, or how you're tracked and seduced into, and I'm using the word seduced specifically because a lot of that happens with the online pornography. So what are some of the reasons for the increased use of pornography? Well, we're assuming it's increased use, and I think that it is, because if you think about it, used to be somebody would have to sneak down to the corner drugstore and go in the back and find the magazines tucked away.
I remember.
Remember that? Or under the, wait until nobody was in the store and then ask for the ones under the counter, So no more. I mean, the thing is with the online pornography, it's totally accessible. Anybody who can push a computer key, and that means children. It's accessible, it's available, it's everywhere, it's very easy to access, and you can access it anonymously. So, and nobody knows. I mean, who's to know? So those are the three big factors that we think are facilitating the increased use of pornography.
Right.
So,
and just to piggyback on that, I was reading a couple of articles that you had provided to me, and one of them did say that there has been an increase over time, and they talked about exactly what you said. The fact that in the old days, I mean, you can go back to all the way. I was telling my class this the other day. Pompeii, when they excavated Pompeii, and here some years ago, they were doing some further excavation. And aside from finding that there was a brothel on almost every corner, inside the brothels were these incredible pictures that were pornographic.
It's been around as long as there's been people. It's been around a long time. I was reading the same thing. And I think it was the new Egyptian tomb they opened. They found some. It's like, human beings never change.
No, I was lucky when I was in Amsterdam several years ago. 10, 15 years ago. And they have a sex museum there in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. It was fascinating to go in and see all these things, because we think of pornography being out there, Playboy magazine and all that, fairly recent. No. It's been around since people have been fornicating.
yeah, pretty much, and could find something to make a picture with.
Yeah.
Well, I think what would make sense for us to talk about at this point is the theories about I was just reading about college students and the increased use of pornography. And I think because of COVID, people are locked in the house,
Right.
nothing to do. So the thing about the the internet is it's, let me think how to say this. It's like a free for all. There's nobody monitoring anything.
Right.
So whoever wants access can get access, and that's a problem. So,
well, let's face it. I mean, come on. Like you were saying, you were mentioning computers, but the fact of the matter is, these smartphones.
Yeah.
You go into the bathroom and have a good time all by yourself.
Yeah. Well, I just pulled some data that 70% of online pornography is accessed via cell phones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you're on it. you already knew that, didn't you? Now, this is the data I'm looking at is with a younger college and just above populations. But you're right, the cell phones. I mean, that's what we're talking about, accessibility. You don't, anyone can. But here's what I think. Well, we'll talk about issues for therapists, but this is some general facts I think people need to know. The average age of children that view porn is 11.
Oh,
yeah. That's not good.
No.
The average age children are exposed to pornography is 9.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Males at 9, females 14. So
wow.
That's a worrisome statistic, isn't it?
Well, it's really worrisome because, again, one of those articles that you sent to me pointed out that one of the determinants in terms of the negative impact of pornography was the earlier age that they were exposed to and involved in the viewing of pornography. So that's really upsetting because we're hurting these children, and these children are being hurt.
Yeah, we are. And I think when we talk a little bit about the addiction model, which you're far more of an expert than I am, I think the issue with kids is the brain issues. What are we doing to these children's brains? And there is a difference, we'll talk about and get to it later, but there is a difference between people who are exposed to pornography and actively using it so young versus adults whose brains formed, who are intact organically, and then begin to look at these things. So the formation of their thinking and their responses is already solidified.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you don't mind, I want to sort of piggyback on that just a little, because it's one of the things when I talk about drugs during my general psych course, I mentioned that marijuana, I've always been a fan of it. I thought it's great stuff. I can't use it myself because I'm one of those that has a paradoxical effect on, but somebody has, that'd be weird. That's me. But here's the thing I point out to the class. The problem with marijuana is early use of it and the brain damage it actually causes.
Yeah.
And the research is hard on this. And I said, stop and think about it. I'm not picking on marijuana, but any kind of chemical you put in the brain, at the early stages, since the brain isn't really fully formed till mid-20s, can cause damage.
Yep.
Okay, so take something like pornography. And one of the things that's been shown over already through fMRIs and things is that, even verbalizations can create new pathways in the brain. So exposure to anything, trauma, here's a good one. Yeah. Early childhood trauma, as we talked about when we talked about sex offenders, that's going to create a change in the brain.
Does. I just briefly, I worked on a national project, an early psychosis, intervention in early psychosis with teens. And one of the things that the studies were showing was that the marijuana that's around now is lots more potent than it used to be. And B, early marijuana use is really, really, really harmful to the teenage and young brain. It's much more so than, it doesn't harm adults' brains. just like you said. But I cannot tell you the number of teenage, young adult males, mostly males, that I have interviewed and worked with whose first psychotic break was precipitated by marijuana.
Oh, wow.
It's like they're struggling, their brain is struggling to stay okay, and then sometimes it becomes a cart before the horse. They try the marijuana to kind of ease the pain and stabilize and self-soothe, and it just causes so much damage that it pushes out into, like I said, early psychosis, first break, second break. Yeah. So it's extraordinarily harmful to the young brain.
Yeah, and I think let's bring it all the way back here now to pornography. It's the same thing, and parents need to hear this. Okay, early exposure to anything is going to create changes in the brain.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, where marijuana has been shown, you know, to damage the brain. Well, pornography, we're not saying it's good, bad, or whatever, but you're exposing a young brain to some stuff that it's not really ready for.
That's right. In sex and in other people who struggle, you see often premature sexual stimulation that disrupts the developmental trajectory, and that's exactly what you're talking about. 22% of everyone under 18 that's looking at porn are children under 10. So, yeah, that's a sad thing. We have a funny slide here, not to make light of it, but it's a funny slide because you know what? These kids don't have to look for pornography. The pornography is looking for them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You know, the algorithms. So, and enough said there, but the point is monitor what your kids are watching on.
Yeah, exactly.
Monitor it and your clients that are having children acting out. It's like, you know, I'm a big believer in monitors on cell phones and computers for kids. I really am. I think parents should have access to them and watch them closely. So let's talk a little bit about, now that we've scared everybody, at least those with young kids.
I'm sorry. I hope people got scared a little bit because as I talk to my class, I call them the future parents of America.
Exactly.
Here's your opportunity, folks. Learn from this and treat your children better so they can grow up healthy and strong.
Yep. So there's a lot of controversy about pornography, you know, in terms of in the research literature and in terms of it causes a lot of problems in areas you wouldn't expect it to or that we wouldn't be necessarily thinking about. But I think the main controversy at the moment, and this we can talk about in light of that article, is whether or not excessive viewing of pornography is an addiction. Now, sexual addictions are kind of the thing that everybody's talking about right now. And so it's kind of like, well, is it an addiction, which is a brain disorder, or is it does it become, for many people, a compulsive behavior? I'm not sure I know how to sort those two out. But I happen to know an expert in the addiction who can tell us about how it morphs into becoming an addiction.
Well, I'm by no means an expert on addiction, but because I talk about it in my classes, I've had to learn a lot about it. I've had, blessedly, and I mean this blessedly, a lot of folks who are in recovery from addictions, and they're incredible people. These people who are working through their addictions. The problem, and what really triggered the conversation for me with you about this is because of this article that was in Psychology Today, posted April 9th. And the first key point is pornography is not an addiction. And that's where I got angry because I said, that's the most absurd statement anyone with any kind of degree, in psychology or something can make, because you can become addicted to anything. It's got, hello, wake up and smell the coffee here, whoever wrote that article. So couple of things. We're talking about the brain, and it's the largest sex organ in the body. Most people don't get that. That thing up there, that 3.5 pounds of gelatinous material, is actually the largest sex organ in the body. Why? Because it runs the whole show. It runs the whole show. And this is why the early exposure to porn really kind of upsets me, because it's like, hello, you're messing with that forming brain up there. But a couple of things here. First off, I will tell you that there's a little history here I will share. I had a client who got into trouble at work, and I won't say where, but he got into trouble at work, and it's kind of funny how it happened. Okay, just as an aside. He was just looking or playing around on his computer there at work, and they monitor all the computers there because it's a security area. Well, he was just playing around, and all of a sudden this porn thing popped up on his computer, and he kind of went, what the, how did that get through? So he thought, oh, let me see how far I can take this. Just out of idle curiosity, he said, so he started playing around, seeing what kind of sites he could go to and things like that. Well, they obviously caught him because they monitor the computer systems there, security.
But let me stop you there and say that is the point I'm trying to make about how insidious it is for kids or for anybody else. Not that there's anything wrong with porn, but how easy it is to someone to track you and grab you and start you down the garden path, which we both know can at some point get you into trouble.
Sure.
So go ahead, Ollie. And
that's exactly what happened, because he says, swear to God, all of a sudden this site popped up, and he went, what? How did that get through? And then he started playing around with it. Well, they caught him, as I say. I wrote a letter on his behalf because they were charging him with being a sex addict.
Jeez, God. Oh my God.
I mean, they really took it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
So I went and did some research, because that's me. I'm always trying to figure out what's the reality behind it. And a gentleman by the name of Goodman back in 1990 compared all the diagnostic and statistical material criteria on various addictive disorders, and he compiled this list. And I'm just going to read it real quickly for you. Okay. So first off, recurrent failure to resist impulses to engage in a specific behavior. Like I said, it could be anything. Increasing sense of tension immediately prior to initiating the behavior. Guilt, perhaps. Pleasure.
Retention.
Yeah. Pleasure or relief at the time of engaging in the behavior. Can you say orgasm? At least 5 of the following. Frequent preoccupation with the behavior or with the activity that is preparatory to the behavior. B, frequent engaging in the behavior or over a longer period than intended. C, repeated efforts to reduce, control, or stop the behavior. D, a great deal of time spent in activities necessary for the behavior, engaging in the behavior, or recovering from its effects. E, frequently engaging in the behavior when expecting to fulfill occupational, academic, domestic, or social obligations. This shows up in my couples work. Important social, occupational, recreational activities given up or reduced because of the behavior. Well, gee, what do you want to do more? Have sex or? Continuation of the behavior despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurring social, financial, psychological, or physical problem that is caused or exacerbated by the behavior. Tolerance. Need to increase the intensity or frequency of the behavior in order to achieve the desired effect or diminished effect with continued behavior of the same intensity.
Now, I'm going to interrupt because remind me, I want to come back to that point because it's very important. Go ahead.
Tolerance point?
Yep.
Okay. And then I, restlessness or irritability if unable to engage in the behavior. Oh God, I got to find a secret place to do this, right? And so some of symptoms of the disturbance have persisted for at least 1 month or have occurred repeatedly over a longer period of time. Now, I wanted to read those to you from Goodman because the reality is you can be addicted to anything. So for someone in our field to come out and say that pornography is not an addiction, hello, you can be addicted to water.
You can, water intoxication.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my lead in for you on the addictive quality. Oh, by the way, one last thing, because it was an article you sent me, because we were talking about the brain earlier. Dopamine, okay, and the brain, and we all know dopamine's the feel-good neurotransmitter, and the whole thing is people have been saying, oh no, not with sex, and it's like, no, neuroscientists, hello, came right out and said, no, it is dopamine, and it's really, really strong with sex, and it's different than sex with other activities, and it's much, much more potent now with the new stimulation from the current kind of pornography that's available. So again, whoever wrote this article for Psychology Today obviously isn't reading current research.
Either that or is trying to take a different tact,
So anyway.
The addiction model is a bit controversial. It makes a lot of sense, but some people don't buy it. But only we need to say at this point, pornography in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with it. It's healthy. It's been used by humans since time began.
Right.
It's just because we're clinicians, we're kind of focusing on some of the pathological issues that are currently arising, and I forgot to say that in the beginning. So, Oli's story about his person at work illustrates exactly what I want to talk about in the satiation issue and the behavioral responses. Mm-hmm. So, what the research is now telling us is, again, it's a brain issue. People get kind of, like hit on this site, and the next thing you know, you're going down the path, and then pretty soon, this is kind of boring, vanilla pornography. It's like, because you become habituated to it, right?
Thank you for watching this segment of the Therapy Corner, where we presented a first of a two-part series on pornography and its influence on us as human beings, the potential for addiction, etc. Please come back and visit us next time. We will have the second half of this two-part series on pornography. Please take care, stay safe, and see you next time.